Is Mitch Marner a good fit for the LA Kings? We have lots of different opinions from Kings fans on this and more on another fan feedback edition of Locked On LA Kings.
You are Locked On Kings, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, Kings fans, welcome to Locked On LA Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On LA Kings your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. I'm Eddie Garcia, your host of Locked On LA Kings, worked in sports media for the past 30 years, also co-host of Locked On NHL Game Night, a daily podcast and YouTube show wrapping up the night in the NHL, new episode out now, and a passionate LA Kings fan for over 30 years. It is time for another Kings fan feedback show. We had lots of emails this week, so I did have to edit some of them for time, for length, to try and make sure we get everybody's emails in. So I apologize for that. I do appreciate all the time you put in for your emails. I do read them in their entirety, but I'm only going to share parts of some of them that were a little bit long. I appreciate your understanding with that. Also wanted to say thank you to all the folks who passed along well wishes in their emails this week with the issues going on with my wife's family and their cancer battle. So I didn't include those as reading those in the emails this week, again, for time. But thank you to all who passed along those well wishes. That is very much appreciated. And with that, we get right to the emails. Our leadoff batter is Travis in Tucson, Arizona. He said, I want to thank Rob Blake for getting us back to relevancy after the rebuild, but he could not get us over the hump, and it was time for a change. Well, it'll be interesting to see what Ken Holland does. As I mentioned before, I think one thing that Blake could identify is the team needs a game breaker. You can no longer win a cup in this league with minimal scoring, as only one cup winner in the last 10 years, St. Louis, did not have a point per game player. If Mikko Rantanen had agreed to a trade and extension here, it's pretty clear to me that we're talking about a conference finals right now against either Colorado or Winnipeg. That's what an impact player can bring. I watched your show, as any everydayer would, about Mitch Marner. I emailed about him before the playoffs. It's time to go all in and get him. The Kings need to do something to get over the hump. I don't know why some Kings fans are hesitant to add a player like him. Marner has 741 points in 657 games. If you remove his first two seasons, he has 611 points in 498 games. That's 1.23 points per game, or 101 over an 82-game average. The Kings have had one 90-point season from a player in 30 seasons. How is this even a discussion? Sorry for the rant, but it's time to go all in. Go Kings, go. And that was Travis in Tucson. I've said, I'm going to just kind of repeat myself once here because there are other people chiming in on we should get Marner, we should not get Marner, so on and so forth. The idea of going after Mitch Marner, to me, is about going after a marquee player. I don't know that the LA Kings are viewed as a franchise, as a team that does that. And I don't like that. I want to be one of those teams that year in and year out is looking to add the best players in the NHL. Within reason, of course. But my point is, we see what the Lakers do. You get Luka Doncic. You see what the Dodgers do, get Shohei Ohtani. And there are varying degrees of success for both of those franchises. One won a world championship. One didn't. One was disappointed, kind of like the Kings. So there's no guarantee. But to me, that's the appeal of going after Mitch Marner, that the Kings are going to say, we're major players. We're going after the best of the best. Maybe they did make a significant run at Mikko Rantanen and it didn't work out. Maybe they'll make a run at Mitch Marner and it won't work out. He's going to be in demand. He is going to have options. Is LA a place he wants to go? I don't know. But like I said, to me, the reason why I'm a Mitch Marner supporter as far as going after him is because of what it kind of says to the fan base, to the rest of the NHL, that the Kings are going to be relevant when it comes to free agency more oftentimes than not. Am I the biggest Mitch Marner fan in the world? Not really. I think he's very talented. I do not think he will score 100 points on the LA Kings roster. I do not believe that. He won't be playing with Austin Matthews anymore. He's only had one season of 100 points or more. I think he's an 80 point player with the LA Kings. And that's not bad. That's not bad at all. But I don't think he puts up the same numbers if he plays for the LA Kings in their system. Scott in Simi Valley checking in. He says, on Mitch Marner, I believe the money is better spent elsewhere. I'll pitch you my reasons. Using the same logic we applied to not having patience with Jim Hiller, what assurances do we have that Marner will become an impact player in the playoffs? And for the price, why should we bother? We already racked up 105 points in the regular season. We don't need to spend $14 million to make it to 110 and then lose in round one again. I was very wrong about the Kings last season, believing that they had four-line depth. The Oilers showed us who the deep team really was. And the fact is the Kings don't have depth, largely because of all the resources Blake sacrificed to cover his bad moves. Let's go after Bennett and Besser. We need to add more than one player to cover our inevitable injuries, and we need to try to sign Gavrikov. I say take care of the roster now while we wait for the Kings upper management to come out of their embarrassing stupors and then hire a top head coach if they are available. And that was Scott in Simi Valley. Well, I don't know that they could. I'm pretty sure the Kings will not be able to sign Sam Bennett and Brock Besser and Vladislav Gavrikov. The Kings are going to have around $23 million in cap space. Besser's looking at around $7 million per season. Now they're talking about Sam Bennett maybe getting as high as $10 million. Gavrikov's going to be looking for around $7 million per season. And, you know, we're talking about tying up all that money in three players, and there's still some other areas to address as well. So I think two of those players is a realistic goal. I don't know that they can re-sign Gavrikov and go out and get two big-time free agents, but maybe re-sign Gavrikov and get one of them and then add maybe some other pieces. That seems more realistic. This comes from Richard Hollingsworth. He is in Scunthorpe, England. And I hope, Richard, that I pronounced that correctly. It's a little dangerous of a name when you look at it. Anyway, he says, I am based in the UK, and I've been a Kings fan since the 93 Cup run. Well, Richard, you and I have joined about the same time. Over the last 4 seasons, I've been able to watch every single Kings game using the fabulous NHL TV and have become an everydayer for the last 14 months. Awesome to hear. Love the podcast, and generally our views are aligned. That said, I have often thought about writing in and giving my views. It hasn't happened until now. Simply couldn't let your comments on Mitch Marner pass without saying something. First things first, the Kings do not have a lot of cap space. Looking at Puck PD, we have $23.27 million for 4 spots in the 23-man roster. Those 4 spots are currently taken by Gavrikov, Kuzmenko, Laferriere, and Janot. If we go all in for Marner, then we're going to have to pay at least $12 million, possibly $14 million, so we'll have to create space. However, a big problem is the difference between the regular season and the playoffs and what type of hockey and hockey player is required for the latter. If you've watched the Leafs games, then you know, then you will have seen the core 4, and most notably Marner, have been lambasted for their play. No look behind the back plays in the regular season are one thing, but they're a whole different thing in the postseason. They lose your games because the games are so tight. And if you're going to go all in and spend big, then why not do it on players like Sam Bennett or Brad Marchand, who are real leaders and also UFAs this summer? I'm sure there are others. Perhaps Besser is one. We got a record number of regular season points last season, so that isn't the problem. Why would we go all in on an undersized player who has achieved next to nothing in the playoffs? 16 wins is what it takes, not points per game and not 100 points in the regular season. For me, I think we should try and re-sign the 4 players mentioned earlier, Kuzmenko, Gavrikov, Laferriere, and Janot, that do fit our system as long as Gavrikov and Janot's contracts are reasonable. And again, that was from Richard in England. Richard, great to hear from you. Awesome that you're able to be such a good Kings fan. I know it's not easy to be able to watch games live. I don't know if you watch them later in the day, but anyway, I know it takes a lot of extra effort for Kings fans over in Europe, and you guys are doing a great job. And thank you for being an everydayer. I tend to agree with you on Mitch Marner. He has not been a proven playoff performer. Is he going to suddenly turn into that kind of a player with a change of scenery? I am skeptical about that. But again, like I said, I do think that there is an appeal of going after the biggest name out there and seeing if you can make that guy an LA King. I think he would make the Kings a better team, but do I think he's the guy that gets the Kings over the hump? I do not. I would have more faith in a guy like a Sam Bennett, for example. This comes from Johnny Embers. He is in Phoenix, Arizona. He says, I think it's time this organization and us as fans stop thinking on emotion and start thinking about results-driven decisions. We need to be like any other cup contending team and start clearing at least 1 defenseman and 3 forwards every offseason. This creates spots every year to actually see what our prospects can do in the NHL. I'm tired of all the trades of talent never being tested on the big stage. I think we need to sign Gavrikov, Kuzmenko, and Besser. It would be a good time to move on from a lefty while we still can get a second or third round pick for them. For example, Trevor Moore and Akil Thomas. As much as I love Moore, our need for right-handed shots overshadows my emotional attachments. So if we're now 4 losses to the Oilers in the playoffs, it's time to rethink your opinion on Jordan Spence. No matter how good his positioning is, he is not effective against bigger players like Draisaitl and Kane and many other forwards that the Oilers have that pushed him around that whole series. I still think he would make a good winger and already on the roster. You can sub for any injured defenseman. As I recall, he likes to shoot and is a righty. Another need for our lines filled with increased the cap. Keep up the Lord's work, Eddie. And again, that was Johnny in Phoenix. Johnny, I'm not going to get on board with this idea of moving Jordan Spence to the forward position. That's not going to happen. And as far as him getting pushed around by Leon Draisaitl, the line of NHL players that have been pushed around by Leon Draisaitl goes around the block and back. So, and you said he was like pushed around the whole series. He didn't play the whole series. I mean, he hardly played in a lot of those games. So, look, if the LA Kings have lost faith, if Jim Hiller has lost faith in Jordan Spence and they're not going to play him, then yes, they should go ahead and try and move him and see if they can bring somebody in that they will have faith in. I still like Jordan Spence. I still think he's a good third pairing defenseman. You talked about trading Trevor Moore and Akil Thomas for a second or third round pick. Akil Thomas, nobody's going to give anything much for him. Trevor Moore, I could understand it. I think the way he played at the end of the year, though, still showed he can be a very, very a really good asset for the Kings, but he's got to have a whole season like that. Obviously, you can't just wait for the end of the year or whatever. So I don't know. I'd still be a little hesitant to move away from Trevor Moore. We've got more emails, more opinions on what the Kings need to do this offseason that's coming up here on Locked In LA Kings, your team every day. Do you ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So you just stop managing your money. You start building wealth. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. Managing money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNHL for half off your first year. Andy in Guelph checks in. He says, great listens this week. Somehow your voice and good shows have softened the blow of no hockey after the first round. Oh, thank you, Andy. I appreciate that. He says, appreciate you. Well, I appreciate you, Andy. He says, I think they're all in on Marner. They have to be. I think they will shift to Besser as a backup plan or perhaps a trade because many teams will be looking to add Marner. His lack of playoff success is a team thing in Toronto. I'm only an hour outside Toronto and have had many Leaf fans for friends. Marner has the potential to thrive in another market. I will take the guaranteed 85 to 100 points anytime. I also believe they can add Marner and re-sign Gavrikov. I saw a projected $23.5 million in cap space. Is this accurate? I say sign Marner and Gabby, trade Deneau and Moore, then bring in Jeannot and fill out from there. Likely only some of that will or could happen, but that's my hope. And again, that is Andy in Guelph. I've seen around 22 and change for what the Kings will have in cap space. So you're in the ballpark. I again, the guaranteed 85 to 100 points for Mitch Marner, I don't see that with the LA Kings. I really don't. I think he comes here and he gets maybe around 70 to 80 for sure. But I don't see him getting 90 or 100 points playing with the LA Kings. I do not. But you've had probably a better look at him than we have. You say that, his lack of playoff production is a team thing and not an individual thing. I'll buy some of that, but I think it's also very fair to say that Mitch Marner has lacked a lot of marquee moments in big games. I think we can all definitely agree on that. Frank in Ranchos Palos Verdes checks in. He says, I've enjoyed your latest shows pertaining to the possible free agents that the Kings may have some interest in. If I were GM, I would re-sign Gavrikov and also Kuzmenko. see what's left as far as cap space goes, and then reassess what's available in the free agent market. I would avoid Marner like the plague. No history of playoff success, and he appears to be more of a playmaker than a scorer. We have those now. If we're going to spend a fortune on a free agent, we need to get one that can put the puck in the net. And what Marner is asking for, I need a minimum 40 goal scorer. Besser, I believe, is too slow, and Bennett, I would love, but he's a center. We don't need another logjam at that position, CPLD. I believe the team is close, and if they can find what they need in July, just be patient and see what becomes available later in the season. Keep up the good work. Go Kings, go. And again, that was Frank in our PV saying no to Mitch Marner. Sasan in Westwood checking in. He said it's good to email the show again and after taking a couple of weeks off. I had a few things I wanted to ask. First off, what did you think of the second round series? I was very disappointed that the Golden Knights didn't put up much of a challenge for the Oilers. Also, not surprised to see the Leafs pull a Leafs in another game 7. They just seemed cursed. Who do you think will make the Cup Finals? I'm hoping Stars versus Florida, but I'm fine as long as the Oilers don't make it. Finally, any chance you get a more behind-the-scenes look at the show? I'd love to see your workflow. How do you come up with show topics, conduct research, prepare your talking points, record the show, edit, and post the show? Maybe it might warrant its own show or separate social media posts. Anyway, love your work. Go for us Kings fans. Go Kings, go. And that was Sasan in Westwood. As far I am watching, obviously, the Stanley Cup playoffs. I have another job that I'm doing for the Locked On Network, which requires me to do that, although I would be doing it anyway. I don't really have a rooting interest except, like most Kings fans, rooting against whoever the Oilers are playing. That is for sure. So I picked Tampa Bay, Colorado in the Stanley Cup final at the beginning of the year. They were both out in the first round. However, I also said basically the winner of Tampa Bay, Florida, and the winner of Colorado, Dallas, I think will meet in the Stanley Cup final. So, of course, the winners of those series were Florida and Dallas, and that is who I think will meet in the Stanley Cup final. As far as any behind-the-scenes stuff, I definitely will try and do something for that. It's kind of some extra content. It wouldn't be an episode of the show, but probably could post some things on social media, something like that. Bill in La Habra Heights says, a faithful everydayer. Thank you, Bill. He says, in your show Wednesday, you discussed the benefit of attaining Sam Bennett in free agency. There is no doubt that Bennett is a beast, especially in the playoffs, but I'm not sure he's a fit for the Kings for a few reasons. First off, Bennett has played a lot of hockey in the past 3 years. Florida's been in the Cup final for the last 2 playoffs and looks likely to make it 3 years in a row. Further, Bennett's also played for Team Canada in the Four Nations Cup. Thus, he has been on the ice for a lot and is bound to have a letdown after playing that much hockey. Second, he's going to be commanding a significant pay raise after his performance in the playoffs. Specifically, if Florida wins the Cup, he may even reach Marner levels, which makes his price prohibitive for the Kings. Third, free agents nearly always seem to have a letdown after signing a big contract, and there would be a lot of pressure on him coming to the Kings, who have a much different playing style than the Panthers. So the change may not be good for him. Lastly, I would question his hunger for another Cup, especially if he wins this year. I know they are all top-level athletes who want to win, but after 2 in a row, the thirst for the third may not be there, especially with a new team. But the Kings desperately need some physicality and grit. I would love it if they would go after Matthew Knies from Toronto. I know he's a restricted free agent, but he has some skill and some spice. Perhaps they'll make him a strong offer. Toronto will not be willing or able to match. He's a young guy and would be a great fit for the future, even if he is another left shot. Or perhaps I am once again misunderstanding NHL contract principles. Thoughts? And that was from Bill in La Habra Heights. First off, Bill, I would say I hear what you're saying about Bennett, but I don't know that guy, I mean, he's got a motor and a desire. I don't think it matters to him. Like when he's on the ice, he's a killer. And I honestly don't think if they win another Cup that suddenly he becomes less than what he is. He has played a lot of hockey. So if the Kings get him, cut his minutes back, play him on the third line. And then when he gets in the playoffs, let him loose. So I would not be worried about that. He's not going to reach Mitch Marner levels. He might get to 10 from what we're hearing. At least there was a report that there was one team out there that said, we'll give him 10, which is pretty significant than what we had heard. But like 14, like Marner's going to get, no, I don't think that will happen. I don't see that being the case. As far as Matthew Knies, he would be a real nice player to get. But as you mentioned, he's a restricted free agent. I did recently do an interview for another podcast that I do with the host of Locked On Maple Leafs, and he says that he does not believe Matthew Knies will sign an offer sheet if it is given to him, that he wants to stay in Toronto that bad that the Leafs eventually will take care of him. So it's if you don't know the offer sheets, I mean, the player has to agree to sign it. Just because you sign a player to an offer sheet, he still has to say, I will sign it with the potential of possibly leaving if my team doesn't match. So from what I understand, Matthew Knies has no desire to sign an offer sheet. Now, maybe if it's an offer he can't refuse, maybe that happens. But thoughts are that would not be the case. Brian in Los Alamitos says, over the past few days, I've been watching the endless supply of YouTube videos showing hockey fans and analysts discussing the collapse of the Maple Leafs. What is so worrisome is that I see many similarities between our Kings and the underachieving Toronto team. Makes me wonder if the Kings are the Western Conference version of the Maple Leafs, a team that can make the playoffs but are unable to achieve anything in them. Both teams are or were run by NHL Hall of Famers Robitaille Shanahan. Both teams choose to run things back over and over again, hoping for a different result. Both teams think they're close. Both teams appear unwilling to make drastic changes. Are the Kings repeating the same mistakes as Toronto? Lastly, I hope the Kings' big acquisition this offseason isn't just the hiring of Ken Holland. Would Aaron Ekblad be someone the Kings would consider? Thanks for the great week of shows. Go Kings, go. And again, that was Brian in Los Alamitos. There are certainly some similarities to the Kings and the Maple Leafs, especially getting 2-0 series leads, winning at home, and then having some really clunky game 5, at least one game 5 for the Kings, a couple of games 5s for the Leafs. I think the Leafs are, though, going to be forced to make major changes because I think Mitch Marner is gone and maybe John Tavares is gone as well. As for Aaron Ekblad, I think he could be a backup plan if Vladislav Gavrikov, for whatever reason, doesn't sign in LA, but he's a right-handed shot. Gavrikov is a left shot, and Gabby can play on both sides. They're both the same age, 29, and they're both going to command about the same amount of money. Ekblad has injury issues. He hasn't played a full season in quite a long time, where Gavrikov seems to be more durable, although Ekblad does have that playoff pedigree that you're looking for, but I don't know that Gavrikov came up small in the postseason. If it was, equal, I would rather have Gavrikov than Aaron Ekblad. All right, we've still got more of your emails to come here on Locked On LA Kings, your team every day. I'm told the NBA playoffs are in full swing, and every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. Whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there has never been a better time to get in on the action. FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and during the action with live player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays. Fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. Which players are showing up in the biggest moments, and how could tracking their trends help you build your next big bet? What would it look like to combine live prop bets mid-game based on how the action unfolds? If you've got a read on who's heating up, why not back it up with a same-game parlay? How could a $200 bonus bet add to the excitement if your first $5 bet hits? New to FanDuel, it's the perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. Our next email comes from Mike Tucci. He is in Long Beach, and he says, it is painfully obvious that Jim Hiller messed up in the playoffs. I've been thinking of Daryl Sutter's playoff press conference interviews compared to Hiller's. Sutter had an attention to detail during his press interviews. He knew what happened, when it happened, and how often it happened. His attention to detail was immaculate. I believe this is something Jim Hiller needs to address on his approach to coaching. The Kings fell apart in Game 1 versus Edmonton and fortunately recovered. This did not happen in Games 3 and 4. I watched the intermission report on TNT where Anson Carter and Paul Bissonnette broke down what was going wrong with the Kings, or rather, what the Kings were doing wrong. I would assume that Hiller is doing the same thing at this time too, right? Hiller needs to emphasize his attention to detail, just like Sutter, or hopefully better. I will defend Hiller regarding this, though. The players respect him, listen to him, and bought into his system, which proved excellent results in the regular season and became extremely close in getting similar results in the postseason. I believe QB will improve his play after that unfortunate clearing attempt. Go Kings, go. And that was Mike in Long Beach. Well, I will say Daryl Sutter's press conferences, look, you're right. Daryl Sutter was a coach that was in control of everything. He knew exactly what was going on, been there, done that. He was a fine NHL coach. I don't know that he said much of anything in any of his press conferences. He hated talking to the media, didn't think he needed to do it, and basically never said much of anything. So I would not agree that in his post-game press conferences, he was some kind of wealth of information and knowledge. But he did have the knowledge. I trusted Daryl Sutter on the bench to make the right calls and make the right moves, make in-game adjustments, all those sorts of things. As far as what goes on in between intermission, in between periods, which I think is what you were saying, I do not believe that there is much in the way of coaching chalk talk going on, to use an old school term. I don't think the coach is up there on the dry erase board. I'm not saying it never happens, but I don't think it happens much. I think guys are basically just getting a rest, getting something to drink, sharpening up their skates, taping up their sticks, and then they go back out and play. I don't think there's a lot of talking that goes on between the players and the coaches, frankly. I don't know that because I'm not in there, but that's my impression. That's what I've heard goes on. And frankly, a lot of people think that goes on in football too, the halftime adjustments. And it does happen sometimes. Most of the time, though, it doesn't really happen. It just that's kind of a myth, it seems like. Oliver in Roy, Utah says, a couple of thoughts. As the playoffs go on, if the Oilers end up in the finals again, I think as a Kings fan, I would feel better about our team. This is not to say that I think we can stay pat, and I think we can make a deep playoff run next year without making some adjustments. I would rather not pay a player like Marner $14 million and spend that money on retaining current players that deserve extensions. The one current contract that I just can't seem to get over is Doughty's $11 million. I was one of those that did not know that restructuring contracts was not done in the NHL. I'm surprised the NHLPA was able to pull that off. That's a good point. He says, that being the case, Hiller needs to do a better job in managing Doughty's minutes next year. I agree. As far as free agents, I'd like to see the Kings re-sign Gavrikov, Kuzmenko, and Laferriere. That would still leave plenty of cap space to sign someone other for key players for depth. Lastly, I think the Kings really need to think about having Greentree on the NHL roster next year. Correct me if I'm wrong, but he's not eligible to play in the AHL, which is an absurd rule. He literally misses the eligibility to play in the A by 1 day. Do I have that right? I know he'll be at Kings training camp, and if he shows some flashes, I think the Kings should seriously look into having him on the roster for the 2025-26 season. He scored 119 points in his first OHL season, so clearly he's too good for that league, and I don't see him being able to grow much there as there are other options for him. Are there other options for him I'm not aware of for next season? Thanks for the everyday show, Eddie. Go Kings, go. And again, that was from Oliver in Utah. Yes, you are correct. As I understand it, Liam Greentree can only play for the LA Kings. He cannot play for the Ontario Reign because of his age. So he either has to play for the Kings or go back to the OHL. And you are correct. It is stupid. He has nothing more to prove there. I think these rules are so dumb. If you are under contract by an NHL team, that team should have the ability to play you wherever is in their best interest and your best interest. And for Liam Greentree, that would be the AHL next season. I would be very, very surprised if he were to make the NHL roster next year. He would have to completely blow the doors off of everyone and just look amazing. And I'm sure he'll look good, but I don't know that he's ready for the NHL next season. Probably not, but he should be in the AHL. I definitely agree with that. We have this from Sam and Vin in San Diego. It says, we are depressed that the Kings are out and we are jealous of the teams that are still in the playoffs. So we're not watching much hockey except to cheer on the team playing against the Oilers. Go Dallas. You mentioned Eric Bortillo's mystery injury and how no one knows what it is. Well, Bill Ranford was on the All the Kings Men podcast and he let it slip out that it's a back injury. We love your good work and wishing you the best. That was Sam and Vin in San Diego. Thank you so much for passing that along and letting us know what exactly the issue is with Eric Bortillo. However, that is not good news. Back injuries can be very serious. Back injuries can linger. They can lead to surgery. So that's not a good sign. The fact that he also tried to come back and couldn't and had to sit out again. Hopefully the offseason cures that, but that does not give me optimism that he could be ready to be the Kings backup next season. Our final email comes from Ed in Brea. He says, I just want to say with all the Mitch Marner stuff, since the Leafs lost again and all of Toronto is bashing him again, I want to say I guarantee the Kings will not get Marner. First off, I don't believe the Kings will offer him a Supermax contract since the main signings will be Gavrikov and Kempe's extension. Also, from what I believe, a lot of players now like Rantanen are not comfy signing in California because of our high taxes. This is one of the main reasons why he signed in Texas, more take-home pay. I think the Kings need proven cup winners like Sam Bennett. Speaking of Florida, they traded Jonathan Huberdeau for Matthew Tkachuk. They went from offensively flashy to a team that's a tough dog championship team. Just saying, maybe we need some more playoff dogs. Woof, woof. That is all. Go Kings, go from Ed in Brea. I agree. We need another Dustin Brown. We need somebody who's gritty, who's willing to do just about anything and maybe even step over the line a little bit in providing some attitude. I think I would love Sam Bennett on the LA Kings. We did have a few extra emails. People were checking in, commenting on the episode that I did about the worst playoff losses in Kings history. And we had a couple other emails too that were not kind of related to Kings offseason moves. So we're going to save those emails for next week. We will get to those emails on next week's show. Thank you to everyone who took the time to email this week. This show is literally not possible without your participation. For you everydayers, those who listen and watch Locked On LA Kings every day, coming up on our next show, we're going to be joined by a friend of the show, Russell Morgan from Hockey Royalty. We're going to get his take on the Kings season and how it ended, the hiring of Ken Holland, and what he thinks the Kings should do this offseason. If you want to get an email in for a future feedback show or for any other reason, the email address is lockedoneddie@gmail.com, EDDIE. You can always leave your comments if you're watching on YouTube in the comments section. We appreciate that. It helps the show as well. We'd love for you to stay interactive with the show on social media, X, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. We are at Locked On LA Kings. I'm Eddie Garcia. Thank you for listening and watching Locked On LA Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Have a great rest of your day. We will talk to you next time. And as always, go Kings, go.